Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and we're going to talk now about Star Wars The Clone Wars. And as we know, we're in the final season 7 on here, and there's been a bit of controversy recently with the last couple of 3 or 4 episodes, and I'll talk about those in a minute. But it was a truly big bounce back to form with this episode here called Old Friends Not Forgotten. And the basically set up here, from which I'm sure you all know by now, is that Clone Wars is obviously set in the period between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and the ongoing battle between the Separatists and the Republic. And as they're winding down to the last couple of episodes within this final season of Clone Wars, we're now kind of starting to see the beginning of the final stages of the events leading up to Revenge of the Sith, the final kind of developments within the Clone Wars battle. And this was fantastic on here, and you can really see from the beginning that there was a real intent by the producers to make sure that we're going to get something truly special on here. You can see from the opening episode where they have the Lucasfilm kind of logo on here, and then we play the music, which is the original John Williams theme, as to the normal music that we have for Clone Wars on here. And you can really tell from the beginning, the way that the animation is just a higher level of standard, a high level of detail throughout on here. We can see kind of Obi Wan and Anakin as they appear on here, and they've just got that look now, as if you could say, right, they're literally gonna come out from here and step into the events of Revenge of the Sith. And we have this great sequence on here when they're taking on this kind of separatist army, and Anakin is kind of pretending to surrender as the troops kind of infiltrate him on the back on it. And I thought this was great as well, again showing the banter between Anakin and Obi-Wan, which I think is a very important aspect of the Clone Wars. And this Anakin here, he's much more of a charismatic, much more of a person, got that much more of a deeper personality than what we saw in the prequels. And I love that, and I think that's something that the Clone Wars series has done really well in both Anakin and Obi-Wan, making these characters a lot more rootable and characters that we can cheer on and really kind of identify with honest. That was a great, fantastic opening sequence on here. The big development, of course, was Ashoka's return, and seeing Anakin's reaction when he first sees her transmission on here. He was really kind of like a lost boy. He didn't really know what to do with himself. Ashoka's coming back on it, and there was a nice kind of reversal here, because Ashoka came across the one who was a much more confident and assured in what she was doing, and Anakin was really kind of a bit at a loss. He didn't really know how to react to this situation. This is a Padawan student, of course. He spent years and years teaching, and of course, as we know, at the end of the 5th season, Ashoka had left the Jedi Order following her being falsely accused of murder on here. That was a great kind of end to that season on here, and having Ashoka coming back and really kind of being a much more kind of determined, a much more confident kind of character in time. We have that great discussion between her and Obi-Wan, because it turns out that as a precursor towards the Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine is under threat now, and he's potentially going to be captured. So they have a decision to make, whether to kind of go and pursue Palpatine or help Ashoka, because as we know, her main cause now is to help out Botaka Ko, who is part of the Mandalore, and they want to usurp Darth Maul, who's been in charge of Mandalore, as we saw way back in season 5 on here. So she's very much vengeful, because of course Darth Maul killed her sister Sabine. So she's on this really kind of vengeful mission out here, and Ashoka was helping her, because as we saw at the end of the Sisters arc, they enlisted Ashoka's aid in her cause on here. So they kind of have a difficult choice to make on it. For me, I actually agreed with Obi-Wan, because I think Palpatine being the Chancellor, he's much more of the if you like, more important cause, because at the end of the day, Mandalore, is neutral, and Darth Maul, he's not really as vitally important in terms of the overall battle with the Clone Wars, because I was kind of siding more with Obi-Wan, that they kind of have to rescue the Chancellor on here. But again, that was a great decision point that they had to make. And again, Anakin had this much more of a childlike manner, where he was trying to kind of appease both. So he said that Rex can kind of help Ashoka, and they'll split the forces, if you like, and Rex can help Ashoka take on the Darth Maul with the Mandalore, right? So he's kind of trying to please everyone, which of course, as we know, when you grow up, you kind of had to make the tough decisions, even if it doesn't please everybody on here. So that was, again, just a great scene between all three characters on here. And of course, there were a few touching moments again where we see Anakin and Ashoka, and Anakin gives her back her kind of twin lightsabers, the blue lightsabers, because I know previously she's had the green versions on here. And we also have that great moment when the clone droids, they paint their masks orange to honour the fact that Ahsoka has come back again. This is them coming to the realisation of what happened with Ahsoka being falsely accused on here. So this is kind of them paying reverence to that and calling her commander again, even though she's not technically the commander of them on there. So that was all, fantastic to watch on there. So yeah, as the episodes build up again, and we see the Mandalore and Rex, Ashoka helping out to combat the forces of Maul, and there was a brilliant kind of air battle sequence on here that we see, and Ahsoka's jumping out of the ship and she's onto the various different battles of the other soldiers on there. And there was this great scene when a soldier wants to eject and she helps him eject out of the ship. Just really kind of vivid, just striking animation on there. This was really, again, a big effort by the showrunners to put this kind of episode on that cinematic level, and you can see all the effort put out there. This is really great and fantastic to watch on here. So as they infiltrate the Mandalorian base, the kind of politician who was put in charge, he tries to resist them, but he's not really a fighter, is he, as such? So he's kind of overthrown quickly on here. And then we later on find out that the whole kind of setup was a trap, because as we know, Darth Maul is forever boldened by this quest for vengeance against Obi Wan, because obviously what happened in the Phantom Menace, and we've seen that as a running theme throughout Clone Wars, and that's good. It's good that they've kind of kept that consistency within Darth Maul. They haven't had them venture off into separate kind of causes. Whatever Darth Maul has done since his return has always been with the main motivation of getting his revenge on Obi Wan, and that was a great, fantastic sequence at the end where we see kind of the clone droids have fallen under the attack. And what was also very distinctive is that you had, as well as the clone droids having the helmets for Ashoka, right, orange face, you also had these other droids, and they were dressed in red, and it was kind of maybe there to indicate that they're Maul soldiers on it. And there was one well, it looked like a female warrior in particular who had this kind of really distinctive red armor and costume. So I wonder who could that be. I'm not sure if it's maybe a Sarge Ventress on there, because again, that's one of the characters that will be interesting to see what happens to her. I'm pretty sure there has to be some reference to the likes of the Sarge Ventress, as we come on to the conclusion of this arc. So it's just very to see who that female warrior was on there. But the episode itself ended on a great cliffhanger where we see kind of Ashoka surrounded, and she's got that great pose where she's holding the twin lightsabers, and then we see Darth Maul emerge from the tunnel, and he basically refers to the fact that this whole setup was a trap, and he wanted to encounter Obi-Wan and not Ahsoka. And then the episode kind of ends there, and then again we get the silent credit scene. Again, another effort for the showrunners to really indicate that this last 4 episodes is really going to be something special, and that's the way it should be. For a final season of any series, whether it's the last 4 episodes, the last 6 episodes, or the final arc, you always have to make sure that it's something distinctive, that it's something truly outstanding, because it's the way you complete your story, and you also reward your viewers who have stayed with you for the multiple seasons throughout on here. In Clone Wars, there's been a long running series. Each series has generally been about 20 episodes long. So yeah, I think it's very deserving that they should go all out here for the last 4 episodes of this season. Now, just to remark quickly, there's been a lot of talk on here that the previous arc we had with the Martez sisters, and basically this involved the return of Ashoka and the Martez sisters. They were kind of all over the place. They really know what they're doing. The older sister was really taking job to job, and they were in charge of this ship, and she was getting involved in these kind of riskier deals just to get money and just to get by on, right? And over the course of this arc, we saw the sisters get in trouble. Ashoka was helping them, and they get involved with the gangsters called the Pikes on here, and there's this back and forth of them getting captured and recaptured on here. Now, the main controversy here, of course, it was twofold. Was the fact that for me it was 4 episodes, and that was unnecessary. I've gone back and forth with a lot of people on Twitter who have tried to argue that this was justified in a way because it focused on Ashoka and she's really important. Now, don't get me wrong, Ashoka has been a very important and pivotal character within Clone Wars, but for me, Clone Wars has been mainly about Anakin and Obi Wan, and even people like Mace Windu, who we don't really see a lot. He's really much in the background, but he's a prominent player, very much so, in Revenge of the Sith. So for me, Clone Wars should always be focused on those group of characters, Ahsoka as well, but it shouldn't be centered all around her. And this arc was 4 episodes long, and it was unnecessary. But particularly when we're in the final season now. If this had been any other typical season of Clone Wars, would have tolerated more. And I understand that in Clone Wars, every season you do get a set of filler episodes. I remember once the episode arc with the droids and their mission, and kind of like you do watch this episode sometimes and you think, what's the point on here, and you kind of drift in and out. These episodes could really be cut out of the season and the season wouldn't be any worse off for it. And this was another example of that, right? So this is 4 episodes, and we spent lots of times when they start off being captured, they go on a big chase, and then they end up being captured. So narratively, you haven't progressed or developed the story anymore. And there was at least 2 episodes you could have cut out from the Ahsoka arc and still had the same story on here. And again, because this was the final season, this was really kind of a filler and a waste of arc on here. I know there was other controversy on here because people were claiming the woke sensibilities, because if you didn't know, originally one of the characters in this sister arc was meant to be male, and then they changed it to 2 females at the end. Now people have claimed again this is kind of woke agenda pushing on it. I didn't really see that as such. My main issue again was that because this was the final season, this was a 4 episode arc that should have been stripped down to the maximum of 2, or you could have even done it in 1. Where you could have had Ahsoka recounting the sisters, they're on the run, they get captured, Ahsoka helps them out. We later on see that Darth Maul's involved with them, they're trapped, the Mandalore saved them at the end, and then Ahsoka has to repay them by accompanying them to destroy Maul. Boom. You could have had it done in 1 episode on here. So they extended it to 4. Okay, so it was really unnecessary stuff on it. Again, particularly when we're in the final season and we only have 12 episodes. So there's really not too much time to be messing around, with such unnecessary filler on it. So those were just my quick thoughts on that episode, because I really think that might hinder the remaining 3 episodes, because there's so much to cover. One aspect that we're not sure that we are going to get on here is Darth Maul himself, right? Because if you don't remember, I think it was in the episode Lawless at the end of the 5th season, it might be episode 16 or 17, when basically what happened was Darth Maul and Savage Press had taken over Mandalore, and Darth Sidious, or Palpatine, whatever one you want to look at him, he's was sensing Darth Maul's presence within the Force, and he goes over there and he has a great battle fight scene with Darth Maul and Savage Press. He kills the press, and for some reason he spares Darth Maul, right? So when we see Darth Maul come back, there's like a huge chunk of that storyline missing, right? And that was really interesting stuff. We want to see what happened to Darth Maul. Why did Sidious spare him, right? What was the point? What was the proof of it? Now, of course, we do know that Darth Maul, he isn't going to die, because he's going to come back later on in Rebels. It's not really a spoiler at this point. If you're watching this episode or you're following or in Clone Wars, you kind of know the kind of general gist of what's going on. But yeah, it's just, with 3 episodes left, are we really going to have time to explore what happened to Darth Maul and why Sidious spared him? Now, I do know there was a planned kind of 4 episode arc to show this development on here, but it never came to fruition. There are certain arcs, if you go online, and particularly on the Star Wars websites around on here, you can see that there are kind of unfinished episodes or unfinished concept art of Clone Wars episodes that were due to air but never got round to being finished for whatever reason. And I do know that was a certain 4 episode arc that particularly showed Darth Maul, and I think we got a re-emergence again of the Night Sisters involved on here, and Dathomir, where his planets from, and there was a great kind of explanation of what happened to Darth Maul in that 4 episodes, and unfortunately we're not going to get it again. A prime result because we spent 4 episodes concentrating on Ahsoka and two sisters. That was unnecessary. So you see, that was the main issue with that storyline itself, is that it took up time that we could have spent building up other characters on there. And like I said, you know, we really should see more involvement of Mace Windu, and really more involvement of the setup of the last kind of final strides of the battle within the Clone Wars leading up to Revenge of the Sith. And again, another development are we going to see is how does Palpatine get captured? Because as we know, Palpatine knows he's Sidious, right? He's got a dual identity, right? So he's going to let himself be captured by Dooku or Captain Grievous, right? But he knows them. He knows they're kind of working under him. So how do those events play out? Why would this Palpatine let himself captured when he can break himself free at any point, right? So you see, that's the sort of things that we really need to be concentrating on, rather than the twin sisters, right, or the Trace sisters, or whatever their name is, right? And that's the problem, you see. Now, who knows? 3 episodes left, so we've still got time where we may get some backstory and development into that, which is what I think we should. But you know, 3 episodes, the danger here is that we kind of cram everything in, because you know you're going to get massive action and massive spectacle, but what you don't want is to kind of everything kind of just get bottlenecked and just crammed into 1 or 2 episodes left as we just round it off, and then you kind of get an unsatisfactory conclusion at the end, right? That's what you don't want, everything just thrown into 1 episode. You want it to have this more measured fill out where we kind of see all the developments and what goes on here. So that's overall my main concern, if you like, with these last 3 episodes, because as I said before, everything's going to be explosive, everything's going to be spectacular and hugely dramatic moments on here, kind of diluted because we kind of know what happens to everybody, don't we? We know what happens to Anakin and Obi Wan. We know Ashoka is going to come back in Rebels, and as recently announced, she's going to be appearing in the Mandalorian season 2, which of course is set after events way after here. We know what happens to Maul later on with Obi Wan. So yeah, the kind of tension, if you like, is going to be taken away, but still, in the Clone Wars conclusion itself, we really need kind of epic and a satisfying conclusion to this, which I'm sure we're going to get on here. So those are my quick thoughts on, you know, really was an outstanding episode on it, and I just hope the next 3 can kind of stay on this high standard and high production value. I'm sure it will. You know, I'm pretty sure those last 2 episodes are just going to be really off the chain, and they're going to be fantastic and spectacular to watch on here, giving us, you know, that truly justifiable end that I think Clone Wars deserves on here. So you let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you think this was a great episode? Were you happy at the fact that we are going to now get a much more focused and epic end with these last 3 episodes on here? Were you like me, unhappy with the previous arc in Ashoka, or you felt that was a justifiable arc? Like I said, I've had many debates with people on Twitter about this. Some said yeah, it was well deserved. There's kind of been a bit of overreaction, you know, people when they were watching it claiming this is the end of Star Wars, and you know, they were attacking Dave Filoni, the kind of main producer of the show. You know, you get that overboard reaction on social media, unfortunately. Now, I wouldn't go that far, but again, I just felt it was just unnecessary and didn't need to be 4 episodes long. But do you disagree with me on that, and you are quite happy with the fact that it was 4 episodes long, or do you think you would have had a less negative reaction if this were just a standard season instead of being the final season, you know, of Clone Wars? So that's it for now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll provide more coverage, you know, if these other 3 episodes are standout, and especially if the finale, which I'm sure will be spectacular. You know, it's kind of disappointing that we're not going to get a season 8, but who knows, things may change in the future. But those are my thoughts on Old Friends Not Forgotten, a truly outstanding episode of Clone Wars. Let me know what you think in the comments below. That's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.